and welcome to the special called meeting of the Mayor and City Council of the City of College Park. I'm Mayor Bianca Motley Broom. We have a quorum with council members Clay, Allen, and Gabe present. The only item on the agenda is a presentation regarding the automated transit network, an introduction and alternatives. And so at this time, I'm calling the meeting to order at 5:37, and I am turning it over to Mr. Gerald McDowell from the Aerotropolis CIDs to get us kicked off. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to the Mayor and Council. Thank you all for giving us an opportunity to come and talk to you tonight. Chairman Pitts wanted us to come and share with you a little bit more information about personal rapid transit, which we are now referring to as ATN, or automatic transit networks. This evening, I have asked our PRT consultant, Peter Muller, who flew in yesterday from Denver. We had a presentation earlier with Marta, and then we had our PRT advisement team on a Zoom call earlier in this mid-afternoon. And so now we're here today to talk to you about automatic transit networks. And so Peter has a presentation that he's going to walk you through. He's going to take about 45 minutes and go through this presentation and then allow for any questions at the end. So Peter, if you would come and just walk us through this presentation. And I would add, I am very appreciative that Councilman Clay has agreed to join us on a planned trip that we have coming up. We're going to go actually visit a site in June. We have about 12 confirmed now for our trip, and then we're going to be making another trip in August. We're happy that Councilman Clay can join us. So Peter, if you would go ahead and kick off the presentation.
Thank you. I'm going to be sitting here for the presentation. It was the only way we could make it work. Mayor, Councilman, thank you very much for having me this evening, and I look forward to giving you, as Gerald said, an introduction to ATN and how it works, and then a discussion of how we could maybe do a demonstration or a pilot system here in this area.
Mr. Muller, as you proceed, just make sure that you're talking into the microphone that's right there.
Yeah. Does that help? Are you hearing me?
Can everyone hear him?
Is that fully turned up? Okay.
Just make sure to try to get as close as possible.
I think I can hear you.
Are you good?
Right. I'll let you know if I can.
Okay, good. Good, thank you. So this is kind of the order I'm going to go through this. Talk about what ATN is, how it works a little bit. Discuss the network effect, which is a very important effect when you're doing this kind of transit system. We'll show you some videos, talk about stations, give a quick comparison with light rail and bus rapid transit, and then discuss our vision for how this could work immediately in the near term and also in the future. Then we'll talk about some possible local layouts for pilots or demonstration systems, and open it up for discussion after that. So what we're talking about today is only systems that use small vehicles, 2 to up to about 8 passengers. We're also only talking about systems that run on dedicated guideways. We're not talking about systems that run in the street in mixed traffic. When you put vehicles in mixed traffic, you get subject to what's happening in the traffic. We're talking about a system that is not subject to things like that, that operates on its own exclusive guideway, that doesn't have to wait for pedestrians or cars to cross in front of it. These guideways are typically on interlinked one-way loops. They can be two-way down a corridor, although that's normally not quite as effective. They have offline stations, so the stations are on sidings, and any vehicle not needing to go into a station can just go by the station. So every trip is an express trip. This results in a very high level of service also because it has short walking distances and short waiting times. Once you're in the system, any vehicle can go to any station, so there's never a need to transfer. Average speeds are higher than other systems because there are so few stops along the way. Boarding is level, so it's roll on, roll off with bags and wheelchairs. Everybody gets a seat. And finally, it's well suited to social distancing. So I want to explain the network effect. This is what happens when you link a whole lot of stations together. If you only have two stations linked together, you only have two options. You can either go there or you can come back. That's it. But if you double the number of stations to 4 stations, your options go up to 10. So your options go up faster than the number of stations. So the utility of the system, which correlates with the ridership and the revenues, goes up faster than the number of stations goes up. So the rule of thumb is that it increases at roughly the square of the number of stations. So this is what an ATN network with about 100 stations might look like. These stations would be spaced about half a mile apart in any direction. So anybody in between any of those areas is within a quarter mile or less of a station. So that's about a 5-minute walk from your home or from your office. To get to a station is 5 minutes or less. And then when you get to a station and catch a vehicle, it can get to any other station. No need to transfer. So we would have these stations scattered throughout the community, and that would be the service area that we would serve. Now, each one of these stations, as I said before, is offline. So the green is the through line, and the red is the station guideway. So if that's not your station, you go on by. So there are very few or no intermediate stops. So this is why the network effect works well with ATM. It doesn't work so well with light rail. Here's a 100-station light rail system in Denver, where I'm from. Now, each of those stations is about a mile apart along the line, but the lines themselves are many miles apart. So in fact, while this looks like it's got a bigger service area, it really doesn't. The service area around the stations is the same because you have 100 stations. But in this case, you have about 4 times as much rail track as you do with ATN to serve the same service area. And the network effect doesn't work for light rail because when you add a station, you add a stop. Every train stops at every one of these stations. So you can imagine how slow the light rail is. It has a maximum speed of 55 miles an hour, and their average speed is around 20. Also, when you add more stations, you add more lines because they're not interconnected. So now you have transfers. Passengers hate transfers. And then finally, this is not really the service area because large parts of these areas are just not served at all. So the network effect doesn't work for light rail or for bus rapid transit or for bus because of these types of reasons. So the impact of the network effect is very important to understand. As you add stations, you increase the annual costs. They keep going up as you add stations. But the revenues also go up as you add stations. And because of the network effect, the revenues start going up faster than the costs. And eventually you break even, in this case with about 30 stations. And after that, you make a profit. Now, when I'm saying break even and make a profit, I'm not just talking about the operating costs, I'm talking about the capital plus the operating costs. So if a system like this gets big enough, or it connects the right points to other points, it can make a profit and pay for itself right out the box. So these are some existing systems. This is at Heathrow Airport. Note the roll-on, roll-off with bags. This is in Sweden. Note the snow and ice. This is that same Swedish system in operation in Korea. This is in the United Arab Emirates. And this is in Mexico. Note the vehicle bypassing the station. It didn't need to go there, so it goes by. Here he selects his destination, pays for his ticket. His destination shows up on the screen, so he goes up and gets in a vehicle. These are 6-passenger vehicles. Here you have 2 vehicles trained together to a 12-passenger train. So that's a system already in public service. Now I'm going to show you an animation of how this works.
You're watching a medium-sized VUBA Automated Transit Network, or ATN station. You can see the vehicles bypassing the station. At the same time, you see vehicles on the station guideway bypassing the station berths. Vehicles enter and leave the station about every 5 seconds. Their movement is choreographed so they don't interfere with each other. Passengers select their destinations on their smartphones or at the kiosk. They're then told to wait at the green, yellow, blue, or red berth. Let's watch the yellow berth where the vehicle is going to theater. As it leaves, the destination changes to bus station, and those passengers get ready to board. Passengers getting off a vehicle simply exit the station down the stairs or elevator. Each vehicle accommodates up to 6 passengers and their bags or strollers. What you see here is a steady flow of vehicles and passengers like water through a hose pipe. Passengers are served quickly and do not form long queues waiting for service. This is unlike buses or trains, which make passengers form large groups before boarding, like moving water in large buckets. What is shown here is approximately 2,000 departures per hour. This would take a large bus station moving 40 large buses per hour. You're watching a small VUBA Automated Transit Network, or ATN station. The platform is located at ground level behind the sidewalk. Note that the vehicle floor, platform, and sidewalk are all at the same level, enabling roll-on, roll-off of wheelchairs and luggage. Vehicles coming to this station come down to ground level, while those bypassing it remain on the guideway above. The platform and guideways fit behind the sidewalk within the existing road right-of-way. Passengers use their smartphones to buy tickets and choose destinations. Some use the kiosk in the station. As vehicles leave the station, they go back up to join the main guideway. Imagine hundreds of these stations scattered throughout the city and all interconnected so no transfers are ever needed. Trips are all express with few or no intermediate stops.
Now you need to bear with me for a second because I need to change to video on the internet. So the sound didn't work, so I'm going to be narrating this. This is in San Antonio. It was a video put together by this company called Modutram. Planning a connection between the airport and downtown. The proposed route includes 6 stations serving the airport terminal, the economy parking lot, Quarry Market, the zoo, university area, the Pearl District, and the convention center. The proposed ATN will use vehicles for 8 passengers and vehicles for 6 passengers, plus luggage. These vehicles are rubber-tired, battery-powered electric automobiles, but are designed specifically for mass transit. The vehicles can be automatically coupled to form trains of varying sizes. As demand rises and falls during the day, trains are automatically made larger or smaller to match the demand in real time. The driverless vehicles load and unload quickly, even when passengers have luggage or use a wheelchair. All passengers are seated in air-conditioned comfort with a healthy ceiling-to-floor airflow. Each vehicle has a passenger intercom, information displays, and video surveillance. As you can see, ATN stations are located on secondary tracks, while the main tracks bypass the station. This design feature allows trains to only stop at stations where they pick up or drop off passengers. The stations also have space for vehicle U-turns. All of these features enable a demand-responsive service, meaning first, that vehicles are only used when and where they're needed, saving costs. Second, train routes and schedules automatically get adjusted to real-time demand throughout the day. Third, different types of services can be offered, ranging from a non-stop express service to an inexpensive bus-like service that stops at every station. The different levels of service are enabled by Modutram's state-of-the-art train control and passenger management software that precisely coordinates all vehicle movements to achieve a smooth, constant flow of passengers and trains. The train control system also ensures safety, and it's certified to the highest standards. What makes this particular ATN solution unique and so compelling for San Antonio is that it will serve both visitors and residents. That is, it's not just an automated high-speed taxi service, but a high-quality rapid transit system with affordable fares for commuters, students, airport staff, concert goers, you name it. In addition, this solution will integrate with existing and future VIA transit services to extend and improve the city's overall transit network, and with hotel vans and autonomous shuttles to provide last 500-yard connections. Finally, the elevated portions of this iconic ride will showcase San Antonio's beauty, letting passengers admire the sunrise and sunset, watch the rain approach, take in ever-changing cityscape, and just live San Antonio to its fullest. San Antonio ATN by Bear Automated Transit. Mr. Clay, that's the system that you'll be visiting in Mexico.
Okay. It looked like it.
Yeah.
I went to their website and
Okay, good.
looked around in advance.
So stations can be small. This is unlike light rail, where the station has to be as long as the longest train it's ever going to see. Here we can make stations small or large, depending on demand. A small station has a very small footprint, as you can see. The only thing on the ground is the bottom of the stairs and the elevator and the columns. So it can often fit in behind the sidewalk. Here's the level below the platform, and here's the platform level on a small station. This is a large station, probably larger than you would ever see here. You can see the bypassing guideway actually goes over the station. This station has 12 berths and also has room for standby vehicles. Stations can be elevated or at grade. Elevated stations typically have a smaller footprint, but they can also have commercial space downstairs, which would add to the footprint. They require elevators and stairs, which require more maintenance. At-grade stations take up a bit more space, but they're more easily accessed by the passengers and they're simpler. Guideways can be two-way or one-way. I think I mentioned before we prefer one-way guideways, and this slide explains that, but I'm not going to go into the detail of that. It's just that you get 2 to 4 times the ridership for double the cost when you go with one-way rather than two-way. You'll probably agree that guideways should be good-looking. I think these 3 existing guideways are a little bit industrial-looking, and these 3 proposed guideways are a little more artistic, and hopefully the existing vendors will convert over time to guideways that look more like the ones that developing vendors are planning to bring to the market. This shows how you can retrofit an existing community with ATN. With the elevated guideways fitting behind sidewalks and so on, it's fairly easy to build the system in an existing developed area. An ATN train can serve a legacy train, and the two will support each other, boosting both their riderships. Stations can be attached to buildings, providing access to businesses and jobs. As we go to the right here, we're into more of a new development area. As you can see, in a new development, we can avoid a lot of the parking lots and the roads and so on, and have a much nicer environment to live in. And finally, we could connect the ATN system to the Hyperloop so you can get to London in a few hours. So I want to show this picture of how the future could look, where you have ATN guideways going directly to large buildings which don't need any parking lots anymore. You can have an elevated guideway coming down adjacent to a neighborhood, and in the neighborhood it comes down to grade between the houses, and you could have a fence on either side. We just show it on one side here, but a fence on either side of this guideway so you don't see it from your house. And then the station is located here, and each of these 6 houses around the station has a pathway that comes down to the station, so the people can access the system in their backyard, and it can be used by everybody in the house, including the kids going to school. It can be used to take away the trash or to deliver parcels or anything. And so you have very little or no need for roads in the neighborhood. Now, you could have a bicycle footpath going through the other side of the houses, and that could be built in such a way that if you absolutely had to get a large vehicle to a house, you could use that for that purpose. So this is a way that potentially we could live in the future, where we're living and working in a park-like setting, yet we're in the middle of a dense city. And at the same time, we have access to high-speed, high-quality transportation for us and our children, our entire families. Imagine what that would be like. So to get back to the present and consider the comparison with light rail and bus rapid transit, I don't think I should take the time to go through this chart in detail, but you're welcome to do that. As you can see from the emojis, ATN is better than light rail or bus rapid transit, or at least equal to it, on everything here, except for commercial availability. ATN is still emerging, and we don't have a whole large number of different vendors who can provide suitable systems, but those vendors with suitable systems do exist, and there are others coming to market. If you're interested, there's a connection at the bottom of the slide where you can read a short paper on the topic, backing up every result here. So let's talk about what we could do with ATN in this area. We've been working with Gerald for a number of years now, looking at different layouts, and this may be a starter layout for the area, where we build a circulator around the airport that connects to Mountain View, College Park Station, Delta headquarters, Porsche headquarters, and a bunch of other places. The slide shows that there's 20 miles of guideway on 19 stations. It also shows the trip times, and as is typical, we find that ATN is similar to a car and much quicker than a bus. This could be expanded to the southwest into Fulton County. And now we have 78 miles of guideway and 89 stations. Most of these guideways are one-way loops, with the area down here being a two-way corridor down the highway. So let's think about how we could build a pilot or a demonstration system for that's smaller, something that we can use to demonstrate the technology to allow people and elected officials to see and ride, to promote the vision of what's coming or what could come, and to get their feedback. I think the goals for this kind of system should be, if possible, to try to serve a real purpose rather than just have a demonstration that's out there in the parking lot running around, not really taking anybody anywhere. It would be nice if we could serve a real purpose and possibly even generate some revenue. It would be nice if it could be in a place where it was publicly accessible, where it was fairly simple to implement and operate, and where it could easily be expanded into the neighboring area to serve an even bigger purpose. So with that in mind, we looked at some different demonstrations, and I don't think any of them is perfect, but they're all different ideas as to what we could do. And if you want to move forward in this direction, we could help figure out how to do that and which one works best and how to modify them to work even better. But these are some initial ideas. Oh, and I should say that there are some hurdles involved in doing this. It's not necessarily totally straightforward. First of all, the network effect is working in reverse here, where we've only got a few stations, so we're not going to generate much ridership and much revenue unless we can find a few stations with a big demand between them, which is possible but not easy. So when we do this small demonstration, the amount of infrastructure that we need is quite large relative to the amount of revenue we can generate. The other problem we have with a small demonstrator with small systems is people tend to look at that and say, oh, this is a little fun Disney ride. But they don't see the big picture. They don't see this is really a potentially big transit system. So if we do something that people are going to mistake for a Disney ride, I think we want to incorporate a video like some of the ones you've just seen in the stations or in the vehicles, so when people ride it, they see, oh, what I'm riding is just part of a bigger vision, and they get the idea. Finally, we have a problem where we might choose a technology for the demonstration system, and when we come to do the full system, we might decide, oh, that's not the best technology for the full system, so the demonstration system technology may be left operating on its own in a small part of a big puzzle. And that's a little bit of a hurdle too. So the first alternative we looked at was to connect the Skytrain Convention Center station over here in yellow with the Guideways Center arena. And what we did with that was we said, let's put a station next to the Skytrain station, elevated station. So you get off the Skytrain, get on this vehicle, ride down, and then it comes down at grade here, and then goes back up over the road and is adjacent to the Gateway Center arena. So when you get to this station, you just walk around and go into the arena. There could also be an intermediate station because there's a new hotel being built right here. So there could be another station that connected that hotel. So this could serve a real purpose. I doubt it's going to generate a lot of revenue because people going to the arena don't do that every day, 3 times a day like they do going anywhere else. They only go to the arena when there's something going on there. So revenue-wise, this may not be the best option. It could probably carry enough people to serve that purpose, but it's an option. So let's look at alternative 2. And this is where there's been discussion of a connector bridge going across from the convention center to 6 West. And this is planned as an iconic bridge. Well, we could replace that bridge with an ATN system, which would take about 2 minutes to wait for, enter a ride, and then leave a ride on the other side. And this has some pros and cons also. It could be 2 stations connected by a double guideway and have 4 pods initially. Now, what we're showing here is that bridge is across this part, but there's a second bridge up here, and we would take the system to replace both bridges. So the problem with that is that we wouldn't necessarily have an iconic bridge, but you could combine the 2 ideas and make an iconic bridge that supported the ATN system. That would increase the cost somewhat, but my guess is we would still be substantially below the cost of a pedestrian bridge. The reason for this is, surprisingly enough, a pedestrian bridge has a higher load on it than a footbridge does, than an ATN bridge does, because you have to protect against the possibility that a crowd of people will crowd onto that bridge shoulder to shoulder for the entire width. They would weigh more than twice as much as ATN vehicles bumper to bumper across that bridge. So there's a possibility of saving money on the bridge. But then you've also got issues with everybody who uses that bridge is then going to have to cross in the ATN system. So it's going to have to be running full time for whenever you need it. And if you have some event like a foot race along the path, and then they're going to have to stop and get in a vehicle and go across and then continue the race on the other side, that's going to be a problem. So this may or may not be a viable solution, but it was brought up and we looked into it, and this is what we found. Now, there's an opportunity that you could expand the first option we showed you to connect directly to the airport without having to change to the Skytrain. So you go to the airport in one direction, in the other direction you go to the Delta employee parking lot, and you replace the buses that serve that parking lot. There's some other remote parking that you could connect to also. And when you do all these connections, you put all of these facilities within 5 minutes of the domestic terminal from any station. That's quicker than what it takes from those parking lots. It takes 7 to 12 minutes today. And you replace all those shuttle buses, which are very expensive. So this alternative could potentially pay for itself. And here's a layout of how it would work. This is the Delta parking lot down here. This is the arena station. This is that hotel station. Here's the convention center. We bypass the Skytrain and go directly to the domestic terminal. And we also pick up park and ticket and park and fly riders over here. I would be very surprised if this system didn't make money when you compare the cost of building it and operating it to the cost of owning buses and operating them. And then it would have a big advantage in that it takes a bunch of buses off the roads. And we could take that into account too, because buses cause a lot of damage to roads. So that's one alternative for expanding alternative 1. Alternative 1 and 2 could both be expanded and combined. And here's another way of doing that expansion, where instead of just connecting here to the arena and building the bridge we build an ATN network that totally replaces that bridge and goes all the way through SkyWest. And we turn SkyWest into a transit-oriented development, which would boost their property values significantly. And it would connect to the MARTA station right down the road here in College Park. So this is yet another way of doing it. And this may or may not pay for itself. It depends on where 6 West is in terms of whether they want it, when they want it, whether they'd be prepared to help pay for its development, and so on. So these are some options that we have. And we should think about where do we go from here. If we want to do this, I would recommend that we form a steering committee that comes up with more local goals and objectives than I've come up with. And then we compare these alternatives that I've come up with others. I'm sure we could find 2 or 3 others in the area where this would be worth looking at. Discuss it with potential partners, see if there are other people who want to get involved in helping develop, design, pay for, consider these alternatives. Then you select an alternative, find the funding, select a supplier, build and operate the thing, and hopefully in the future expand it. So at this point, we're open for, I'll let Gerald close it.
So let me preface this, let me end this by saying that Chairman Pitts was one of those who traveled with us last July to Orlando, and he got a chance to see a system there in Orlando, or 2 systems there in Orlando, and he came back and he started wondering if the ATN system could be a solution for South Metro. So last fall, he and I, we met with a couple of South Fulton mayors, and then when we came to College Park, there was more interest in College Park than there were in other cities. So he asked for the opportunity for us to come and just kind of give you a deeper overview of what an ATN system is, what it is, and then for you to consider working with Fulton County and the CID exploring this for the city of College Park. I will also mention to you that the CID for the airport circulator, we have a plan where we're working with MARTA to conduct a financial feasibility study, and that MARTA is considering paying for that study and kicking that off in the second half of this year. At the conclusion of that study, then we will create a scope of work and a RFQ, a request for qualification, where we will send that out to the marketplace to identify all companies that could build that system. And then from those qualified companies, we will send out an RFP for them to submit us a proposal. And all of this we would work through, beginning with the financial feasibility study in the next 2 years. So this year, all the way, that would take us probably through the end of '24. During that time, we would be willing to sit down and work with Fulton County and the city of College Park if there is interest to explore this for not only building a demonstration system in College Park, but potentially expanding that demonstration system throughout College Park. And so that's what the objective of this presentation was today, was just to give you more information about ATN. We will share this presentation electronically with you, so you could go through it again and look at all the videos that Peter has compiled, and you can get more information. And then we can circle back with Chairman Pitts if there is interest from this mayor and council to take another step and form that exploration committee, and to see if this is something that you would be interested in pursuing with the county and the CID working with you as partners. With that, I'll pause and see if there are any questions or comments.
Thank you, Mr. McDowell. We've got a little less than 15 minutes till our budget hearing starts, but Councilman Clay?
Yeah, as you're aware, I'm sure that several years ago, we did look at some sort of a pod system. It was a suspended system. And we went out to kick the tires, and
no tires to kick.
There was no engine in the car, kind of thing. But What do you view is the biggest technical challenge to this? And the reason I ask that question, I don't know how large the one in Guadalajara is, and I don't know the other couple places that you talked about, but they strike me as probably being from here to there as opposed to an actual grid. Is that
Correct.
true?
That is absolutely true. Yes, sir.
Okay. So, based on that, what do you consider to be the, I'm talking about our expert here, what do you consider to be the biggest technical challenge in a system of this kind?
So, government organizations are not part of the question. You're asking technical, because getting this done is the biggest challenge. But the answer to the technical question is the computer control system. Okay, and the computer control system is now proven in 4 or 5 different instances, but not proven at scale. However, each one of those systems has been designed to scale. They're all designed on a modular basis, so they have zones. And as soon as they can demonstrate that a zone works and that they can do the handoff from one zone to another, they're basically proven to scale. So the computer control system is definitely the toughest technical part.
Yeah, well, I know when I looked into the system several years ago, I was very enthused about it. I am very enthused about this as well, I might add. There were no technological breakthroughs that had to be overcome.
Exactly.
In that system. And there are lots of different ways you could implement it. You could implement it on a dedicated lane on a street with a cable underground that it could be tracking. Not good to mix it with the cars, so it needs its own road. It wouldn't even need a cable. It could be guided by GPS, for example.
Magnets.
But
Buried magnets too.
The real challenge that I saw about it is logistics. Forget about the building of it. This system is going to happen, I believe.
Yeah.
This model is going to work eventually. The issues that I saw with it as the biggest technical challenge is the integration and the logistics of getting the right number of cars to the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And handling point-to-point surges in the network.
Yes.
For example, going from the arena to the MARTA station.
Yes.
If we had a network now.
Right. So that is a big part of the control system. It's called the empty vehicle management system, and
that's it.
Yeah. And I've been working for years now with a professor from Sweden who is a professor of simulation, and he's been simulating these systems for 30 years. He's simulated systems with, I forget the numbers, it's like 700 stations and 15,000 vehicles, and playing with all of these issues and figuring out how long are people having to wait because they're waiting for a vehicle to come and all this stuff. And it's all under control and a lot easier than designing a driverless car.
Well, I obviously haven't tried to run a simulation or design a simulation for it. I don't have time to do that. I've done simulations in the past. You're going to need some staging points, I believe, and this is not having done a simulation, it's just my awareness of networks.
Yes.
You're going to need some staging points where you can pool cars throughout the network.
Yes.
You're going to need to build fault tolerance into the system, which means you can't, one line is great conceptually, and you may even be able to handle things by getting off on the side and discharging passengers, but it's not going to hold up well to a large number of people getting off at a particular time for a single event, unless you have a multiple grid, unless you have a grid kind of pattern.
Right.
And you are not, you're not going to be able to probably meet fault tolerance requirements, would be my guess, unless you have some kind of a grid, so you can alternate route around. If you have a car that breaks down on the main line, I'm not
Right.
talking about the station now.
Yes.
You're gonna run into an issue.
Yeah.
So those are things I think that are the problems that need to be solved, and hopefully, the consultancy that you're providing is gonna be able to solve those problems. We looked at putting a train, a suspension right next to the bridge several years ago. We have just approved the bridge, by the way.
Oh,
And this would be, I can't see it running on the bridge.
No, I couldn't
No,
see it.
but
either.
I can see it running next to the bridge,
Right.
which was
yeah,
which was what we had talked about before.
yeah.
Anyhow, I'll let some other people ask questions since we're short on time.
Thank you. Councilman Carn?
Interesting concept. We met before about it and talked about it. I saw a group that had a demonstration of this at one of the NACOs that I attended. That's the National Association of County Officials. And it was a GPS system, autonomous system, more or less. And, interesting technology, obviously. I understand the first time you approached us, it might not have been that much interest in this thing, but I can tell you firsthand, there certainly is now. We want to be on the cutting edge. We want the technology. The county gets a lot of money in terms of national levels and different initiatives and projects. And we want to be that pilot location for, or at least have the first shot at it. And one thing about having a great relationship with Fulton County is that we get looked at first with some of this stuff, and we're going to make sure that continues to be the case. I saw, the pilot program that you and the chairman were referring to. Essentially, once you get the MARTA feasibility, I remember he mentioned that, and he mentioned the figure for that MARTA's going to get together. Ultimately, this is going to come down to a pilot program that's not going to cost the city of College Park very much, because you want to show this as a demonstration for expansion throughout the county, Metro Atlanta, ARC, so on and so forth. So that's good news. We had talked more around the alternative number one, as far as the three-station deal, which sounds like it makes the most sense in terms of cost and actually making this thing happen. I look at some of the other stuff. The MARTA partnership, Hartsville-Jackson partnership. I think it's a great mix of synergies and how communities can work together to make something happen. At some point when we develop this thing out, I think about the potential shared costs, like the APM system and what we have now with the hotels and all the beneficiaries in and around the hospitality center. So I'd love to see that thing, run parallel to the bridge as we expand it, and I'm excited about it. When I saw the first list and the proposal, I said to myself, I definitely noticed who was on the list in terms of the committee. I recommended, I insisted that we expand that list. I don't think there are or should be any committees in this city without council members on those committees. So we wanted to make sure that happened. I recommended Ambrose, obviously, since he can finish out your whole network on the back of a paper napkin anyhow. So I said it was something that I definitely wanted to see happen. So let's explore it. Let's follow the channels, and I'm excited about it. I don't want to waste another week on it. Let's get moving on it.
Thank you. And if I can just add one more comment. You got another question?
We got to get to the questions.
Okay,
This is
okay.
6:25. Councilman
Thank
Allen,
you.
go right ahead.
I just had a couple of questions. First of all, I'd like the study, I think, will show several, it'll be very interesting. This is the way we're going. I think College Park and Delta and the arena and the GICC airport, there's a lot of places you could connect here. I didn't know if you were looking at overhead or if you're looking at track type. I guess the study will take a look at all of that.
That's right.
I know Dallas Fort Worth had a similar system at one time where they had a track that went from terminal to terminal to terminal,
Yeah.
and only had like one or two cars going at a time. It started out great, and then it just didn't pan out, and they ended up putting rail above. So I'm very interested in it. The country's going this way. Traffic is gonna get busier and busier, so this'll help out a lot, so just looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Councilman Gay.
Yes, well, first of all, let me apologize for being late. I think it's a great project, as the other colleagues have said. I look forward to study and participate.
Thank you.
Mr. McDowell, you wanted to add?
Well, I just want the mayor and council to hear from me that this is a bigger play. And my goal, as from the CID perspective, is not to invite you to be part of something that is not going to happen if you don't carry the load. And so over the past couple of years, we've been talking at the state level and at the federal level. And as a matter of fact, we have two state leaders going with us to Mexico because I've been looking at this since 2012, and I believe this is the mobility solution for the 21st century. Yep. And in Metro Atlanta, there is no city that has more of the characteristics to allow for this to work than College Park. And so I appreciate the opportunity to come and share this with you tonight. And for that reason, if College Park has those characteristics, then everybody needs to be on board to work with College Park, not just the county, but everybody at the state and federal level to make this work so that we can bring this not only to the airport area, but to South Metro and throughout the entire region. I even believe that this could be a Georgia solution. So thank you for your time to hear from us, and I hope you would consider forming a working group so that we can explore next steps.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Gerald.
No, thank you. Appreciate your time.
All right.
You guys have a great budget meeting. I was looking at this book. I'm going to school.
We're not tackling the entire
It'll
tonight.
be great to see it come to fruition.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
All right.
All right.
Okay, so we've got about 2 minutes till we start our budget session, so we'll do a little transitioning here, and if you need to take a little personal time, go for it.